You know what makes this scene even sadder than it already is? It's the fact that childhood friends never win. Feels bad, man. It really does, because my heart, when I was watching this episode of Steins Gate, seeing someone so sweet, innocent, someone that has kind of been one of the big cogs of the series, someone that has, managed to help out Okabe in times when he really needed it, and Okabe helped her out when she really needed it. It was a really sad sight when she just started breaking down, realized everything, and then she's like, I miss the old Kyoma. I want Hoin Kyoma back. I don't want this Okabe. I mean, he's cool, I love him, but I love Kyoma more. And I'm just like, yo, this is my feels, man. Like, my heart couldn't take it while watching this episode. In all honesty, I was just like, I guess this is where Steins Gate Zero just starts, going on a whole roller coaster of feels. Because last episode and now this episode, we're definitely creeping into that end game, that final stretch of Steins Gate Zero. And just like this episode, man, was just, it was glorious. So, I just want to take a few moments to mention the fact of what Mayuri said was really touching. When she said that, I love Hoin Kyoma, and I love him way more than Kurisu ever will. And, it's sad because it's definitely true. I mean, even though Okabe's heart is for Kurisu, and Kurisu loves him, we know that's kind of how the OG ending is. Those two get together. Mayuri, besides just being a childhood friend and has to follow that cliche she won't be able to get with him, she's been with Okabe's ups and downs continuously throughout her entire life. Okabe was there for her when she was younger, and then throughout her life, she always had him as a support. And with the recent events of how, he sacrificed everything for her, that just makes her realize how much that, she cares about him. And when she admits her feelings for the first time for the audience, it hits you right in the chest. You're like, we knew that, Mayuri loved Okabe. We've always known this, okay? I mean, you don't need to play the visual novel or anything to understand that. She's always had feelings for him, but at the end of the day, Kurisu won. And when she admits those feelings in front of, Daru and all that, I just like, holy crap, like, I wonder how Okabe would feel if he actually heard Mayuri say that to him. Like, how would he react? How would he feel about all this? But it's not just that, though. I mean, she also feels so guilty for everything that has happened. I mean, she even wanted to go back in the past. It was very clear from the way the episode was going that she was going to go back in the past with Suzu, which could cause a whole lot of different issues, which, I want to try to get into. So, as we know from the Beta World line, Mayuri can't die, from what we know. At the very least until, Kagura comes about. And that means that if she did go into the past, she couldn't die. Because it's not a similar situation to how Suzu is. See, Suzu, the reason why she could die is because she's technically in a part of time before she is even born. So she can die, and her new self, will be born, and then eventually can go back in the past. So that's why Suzu can be on the chopping block and just die anytime. But someone like Mayuri, that only has one, she, if they go back in the past, they're not going back before she was born, that would mean that she can't die. So, does that mean that the Mayuri that we see, like in, the beginning of the series of Steins Gate Zero, to, the opening ending song and all that we see in the future, is that Mayuri time traveled? And could this potentially mean, like, how Mayuri remembers certain things? Remember, that's still kind of been unexplained to this very day about, Mayuri and her remembering certain timelines. I mean, she even talked about it in the previous episode that she remembered scary things. In the original Steins Gate, she also talked about how she was having nightmares and, dying constantly and, Okabe trying to save her. She mentioned this also in the original. So, I wonder if Mayuri goes into the past, it might explain why she's kind of aware of different timelines or world lines. I wonder if that's actually going to be explained. But getting off of that for a second, let's also talk about the fact that in this episode towards the end, there was a pretty questionable scene, okay? And what I mean by questionable, I mean poorly done. See, Steins Gate Zero has had a very consistent art and animation, direction, to music, voice acting. Even in this episode, art and animation was really good, up until the final moment of the episode, and I will get into that in just a second. But it's been very consistent throughout the entirety of the ride. Even for episodes of just about talking and just having these two characters, speculating and theorizing with each other, it's always remained very consistent, and the art and animation honestly looked even a lot better than the original Steins Gate that came out a long time ago. Now, towards the end of this episode with the soldier scene, it was a very awkward scene. Because number one, Suzu was just sitting in the middle of the rooftop, and then all of a sudden everybody was surrounding him. It was a very awkward scene, because just like everything we've seen from Suzu as a character, to how she's a veteran, like a soldier and all that, and she's always been aware of her surroundings. We've seen this time and time again throughout Steins Gate Zero, and even in the original Steins Gate. Having those soldiers just sneak up on her like that, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense. It felt very off, like how Suzu wasn't able to really comprehend or understand someone was surrounding them. But then on top of that, just the animation on that scene was pretty freaking bad, because there were so many soldiers that were just sitting there, like just holding their guns or whatever, just sitting there and not doing anything. They were just sitting there, not firing or anything, and even had their backs turned to Suzu when she was in the time machine and came out when people were just getting, off left and right. So I'm just like, yo, the art and animation for that section is just very awkward and weird. But besides that, it was a good episode. It was a really good episode, but it was just a very awkward scene. I don't know if it's because of the way the animators decided to depict the scene, if it was different in the visual novel or not, but it was a very weird scene, and it didn't seem like it flown well, or it was fluid compared to, the previous parts of the episode. Okabe, he right now is having a huge wake-up call. Number one, he realizes now he can't really stay the same. He can't just forget about everything and try to move on and act like nothing happened. For instance, the whole time traveling to Kurisu, he cannot act like that. And even though he's kind of made peace with Kurisu's death, he's not fully done with it. It's been very apparent by the way he carries himself. He's still very, depressed and sad. And throughout this episode, he realizes, because of Mayuri wanting more information, how the world is being done, or how people are continuing to hunt after time travel, he realizes there's nothing he really can do to stop that, and he's having, like, a major wake-up call, because no matter what he wants, the world is always trying to mess with him, always trying to force him to get back into that time machine, and I don't really blame Okabe for, not wanting to go back in the past. I've talked about this many times. I don't think anyone really can blame him, even though we know that he will get a happy ending one day. Maybe not this one, but one of them will get a happy ending. I cannot blame Okabe for giving up. I've always said, like, I can understand. If we were in that situation and we had to see people die time and time again, and you saw how the world, worked, or how time worked, you'd probably give up too, okay? You'd probably be giving up way before then, just of how cruel it was. So, I mean, I don't really blame the man. He's went through a lot, and I don't think anyone really can judge him on that. But the thing is, though, regardless of how he feels, the others don't want to stop, and Mayuri seeking answers, wanting to, make Hoin Kyoma come back again, that might open the door up for him to, seek an epiphany, and realize, like, I guess I need to make sure this time machine is made, for I can send message back to my old self, maybe to, save Kurisu. It's just like, I watched that final segment, actually, of the original Steins Gate, by the way. I rewatched it today, just to, go along with, how this episode was done. And, how Mayuri, how she stated, like, she liked Hoin Kyoma more, like, she loved him a lot more, she wanted to hear his arrogant laugh and all of that. In that final scene, like, right before, Kyoma, he actually saves Kurisu and Mayuri, you have it where Mayuri also says that she really loves Hoin Kyoma more. She actually says that at the end. And I do like the consistency with that in this episode of Steins Gate Zero, but it doesn't just stop there, though. When you look at that final scene and everything that, Okabe has, done or led up to that very moment, you're like, holy crap, like, everything, is just gonna come full circle. I mean, when I was rewatching, I was just like, man, like, the Kyoma that gets to be with Kurisu at the end got off, honestly, lucky compared to the one we're with, because when he made the video, when I was watching that scene again, it was very depressing, because he was putting on these airs, you know, acting like a mad scientist instead of sad scientist, and he was just, you know, saying, like, you need to fool the world, you need to fool, you know, yourself, your old self, and just, like, holy crap, when you think about everything he's went through to, you know, when he eventually will rise again as, you know, the mad scientist, it's definitely going to put a smile on Mayuri's face. Now, speaking of Mayuri for a second, apparently we're in a different timeline. And that is one of the big reasons why I actually decided to go back and look at the, you know, the ending before, you know, he switched over to the Beta World line and then, you know, saved, you know, Mayuri and Kurisu. In that scene, the time machine, it was called C204. That's what the time machine was called. The time machine that Kyoma uses to be able to go to the Steins Gate World line. And the machine in this episode was C203. One digit down compared to the one that actually saves everyone. And that means that the timeline that he was on this entire time wasn't the proper timeline. That means that there needs to be a time shift, which technically we did have a time shift towards the end of this episode, because apparently we're on a new world line that, you know, is completely different from what we had, and Mayuri and Suzu has now opened up like a gateway to be able to reach Steins Gate, something that, you know, wasn't intended or whatever. So I'm kind of curious on, you know, what's going on here, but I do wonder if what we're getting here might be like an ultimate sacrifice, you know, someone having to sacrifice themselves just to be able to achieve something for the Steins Gate World Line. I could definitely see Mayuri doing a sacrifice or something. Now, speaking of her, by the way, she got shot and hit the ground. Now, the way the scene's done, you don't really see blood pouring out of her. Now, there is, like, a black screen, and you see, like, blood dripping down the screen, but we don't really get to see it come out of Mayuri, and so it's left up to speculation what really happened. Did she get, you know, mortally wounded? Was it just a shot that grazed her? I mean, we really don't know, and for all we know, it might not even hit Mayuri. It could have hit the, you know, the person in the suit, for all we know. And speaking of the person in the suit, we don't even know who that really is, because the way the scene implies it, it's not Kagura. It definitely implies that, because just the way the, you know, the person's there just sitting above Mayuri. So the question is, who is it? Is it, you know, the professor? Or is it potentially Yuki? Since this is a different timeline, for all we know, maybe Yuki is a, you know, a traitor in this timeline. We really have no idea whatsoever. So I'm kind of curious just about this entire ordeal of what's going on towards the end. I don't think she's dead, because like I said, you know, because of how the world line works, she can't die. I mean, unless she's in something completely different. She's not in a beta or alpha world line. She's like in a different type of world line, like delta or something, or gamma. I mean, I guess then maybe she could potentially die. But I mean, I don't really know how those world lines are, if they even exist in the first place. So that's my point I'm getting at. We don't really know if they are still in the beta world line because of the events that happened. But we'll have to find out. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, you know, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And I love you guys. Please be safe. If you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.